weekly show on the Gruely True Sports Network. I'm your co-host for the show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to welcome in my esteemed co-host. Well, at least one of them's esteemed, but we'll get to him last. First up, I want to introduce to the show a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame and a member of the 1981 National Championship team who is still very glad that Ted Kitchell got in foul trouble. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Doing great today, Mike. How you doing? Getting really excited about basketball here. I think we're down to probably the last week in a few days before the season kicks off, and it's all starting to hype up big time now and start diving into this and take a look today at what's going on. And it's, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the love for Indiana right now. Looks like they're going to have a good year.
And next up, our other co-host is a man that was a good enough basketball player to overcome Steve Risley's AAU coaching and go to Indiana University and play for 4 years. Help me welcome to the show, Collin Hartman. How you doing, Collin?
Doing well, Mike. Appreciate it. Really looking forward to it. Just got locked in for Hoosier Hysteria and ready for basketball to start.
All right, so let's talk about that. You were under Coach Miller last year. Let's talk a little bit about the first 2 weeks of preseason practice, what that entails, and how Coach Miller will run that.
Yeah, first 2 weeks are long practices, to be quite honest. We're still conditioning, still doing stuff like that, because basically one last push into the season before you really have to start to think about time management and everything like that and preserving guys' bodies so you peak at the right time and all that. But you're really putting together X's and O's of the offense, refining everything, whether it be transition offense, half-court offense, shot clocks, situations, all situation basketball, developing the confidence of one another so that when you play in atmospheres in the Big Ten and all over the country, which they will this year for sure, that don't allow you to hear the coach or hear the sideline or anything like that, or even hear each other on the court, to develop that chemistry, to know where guys are supposed to be and know the system and know where guys are going to go and know what plays are called and everything of that nature and what actions at the shot clock and just being able to flow and not everybody pause and look at the bench and not being able to hear and make sure everybody's on the same page. Defensively, putting together schemes, half-court and transition defenses, get matched up communication, really stressing how big communication is for a team offensively, but more importantly, even defensively, especially in transition, getting back, getting matched up, stopping the ball, corralling the ball, and just getting your defense set. Simplicity is the key, in my opinion, to the game of basketball. And at this point, is just making the game as simple as possible, offensively and defensively, so that the young guys can pick it up faster, which we're definitely going to need this year. Our freshmen and younger guys to be clicking on all cylinders sooner rather than later, and for the older guys to master it and almost perfect it. And at the end of the day, these first 2 weeks, you're still looking to evaluate players. I don't care what you've done this summer. I talked about last week, kind of our scoring sheet that we run every week. And every day is day-to-day points that they tally up, and you're going to be able to look at that every day. You go to the locker room before practice, after practice, and look at it and see who stands where throughout practice, who's producing, who's the guy to chase, who's going to be the dog day in and day out on the court. And you get to be able to compare yourself to those people, and you're, I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing enough of this. Coaches are expecting this X, Y, and Z of me. So this is what I need to step up on because they track it every single practice. And then a good part of that is a perfect example is Zach McRoberts last year. He brought it day in and day out and practice on the court, and it showed in games. So it was just putting day after day after day together and stringing together good weeks, good days, good weeks, good months, and peaking at the right time. And this is a time for the team to build chemistry and kind of get the core of the game and the system locked into their minds.
All right, and Steve, when we look at this preseason, there's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up from last year. And I know you sat down and you came up with 5 keys of things that need to be attacked by Coach Miller in the preseason with this team. So you want to go ahead and start off with number 1?
Yeah, and before we get there, I want to reiterate a little bit what Collin said. In our era, the first month of basketball, I'll bet we didn't scrimmage 10 to 15 minutes a day. And we were in the gym. Practice started at 3:10, and we didn't get off the court till 6:30. And literally, there were not more than 10 minutes of running up and down in the court in a 5-on-5 situation. Usually that was transition from block-out drills to transition to filling lanes and creating offense off the defense. But most of it was just drills, solid drills. And it was a grind. I mean, to the point to where after the first week, you were beating on each other. You were getting tired of each other. You were jawing back and forth. You really didn't like the person on the court that you were with. You were very tired, very sore. Most of the guys in the first 2 or 3 weeks would keep just a jar of Vaseline in their locker. And no, not for those reasons, but
Collin, neither one said anything about that. You're the one that laughed and said not for that reason. So it makes me wonder what happened in the late 70s and the early 80s.
You didn't go on the court without lubing up your knees and your elbows and your hips and made sure that you had as much padding on as you could, because you were not going to be doing anything but grinding and physical basketball play. And unlike the game of today, we didn't have a lot of schemes, so to speak, to work on. We worked on man-to-man defense, being in the help side position, ball side, man side position of the court. There were tape lines on that you had to be in the right position all the time, and a practice stopped anytime if you were not in the right position, and you needed to learn where you needed to be. And toward the end of the preseason practice, you would start trying to find the guy who wasn't practicing very well so you could guard him and get some rest in practice occasionally. Like I got Mike Lefebvre. I'm taking Lefebvre this time. So poor guys like Mike Lefebvre or some of the 12 or 13 guys would get all the big studs guarding them, and they just they didn't know what to do. They were getting pounded on by everybody. But it was usually in the first 4 to 5 weeks back then. It was very, very physical. Coach was always trying to get into your head and outsmart you. I got caught one time. It was a brutal practice I'll never forget. And he got upset with us, and he put us on the line. And we did, you remember the free throw and back, half court and back, free throw and back, full court and back. You remember those, Collin?
Suicides.
You guys ever do those? Yeah, suicides. I guess they call them suicides. Well, we started running those, and then we were all like puking and tired. And I was a pretty good athlete at that point in time, and I was holding my own, making sure I didn't finish last, but not trying to win the things. And then Knight says, "All right, whoever wins the next one gets out of practice." So of course I ran away with it. I blew everybody out of the water. I mean, I was probably 20 feet, 30 feet ahead of everybody else, and of course you knew what was coming there. Everybody got to leave practice except for me, and I got to run for another half hour.
That's crazy.
So
he dogged you.
Yeah, I felt.
That meant you weren't trying the other times.
I fell prey to that.
He's trying to cheat the system.
There was a lot of mind games going on back then, and a lot of grinding, and a lot of bruising and soreness going into it. But it was not. It's not a fun period, because all you want to do is finally get away and just see a different colored uniform than the red uniform or the white uniform that you're playing against on any given day. So it's a real grind for these guys. And I know the coaches, Miller's philosophy maybe to make it a little bit more fun. Knight's was not. There was nothing fun about the first 4 weeks of practice. It was like, if you live through this, you can pretty much live through anything that's less than war or anything like that, where your life's actually on the line. But taking a look at it, some of the things that I think that Indiana needs to be focused on, we can debate all those. I put down 5 keys, I think, in the preseason that Indiana is going to need to really improve upon and focus on real hard now. And I think number 1 on the book is free throw shooting. They shot it at a 65.7% clip last year, and that's just not going to get it done for you when you get opportunity to score free, easy points with the clock stopped and you're to pad a lead and give yourself a break. You're scoring when you're not working hard, or you're behind and the clock's not running. You need to catch up. You need to be a good, at least 70-75% team free throw shooting basketball team. Indiana fell way below that. They were in the bottom 10th of the United States last year. And that's just something that as they grind and they work, they've got to get to a mentality where these things become more automatic and they're not thinking about missing them. They're just knowing that they're going to make them day in and day out. Collin, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it's just almost a mental game that you end up playing with yourself. You just got to overcome that, especially the young guys, stuff like that. It's just got to come together. And like you said, I think we have to capitalize on free points. And we never want to get in a situation where it's a close game at the end and they can just foul us just because we're not very good at free throw shooting, and we don't make them pay for that.
So how was that addressed? How was that addressed last year, Collin? I mean, how does Indiana go about practicing free throws?
Oh, we shot countless free throws before practice, after practice, during practice, especially late in the year, middle of the year. Actually, we do it all throughout the year. I don't know. It was hard. It was, I have no explanation for it, to be completely candid with you. Guys just need to step up, take their time, and knock it down. Step up with confidence. I think that free throws, more than anything, is a mental game with yourself. Being able to block everything out and being able to forget the last free throw. If you miss the first one, you got to shoot another one, unless it's 1-on-1, obviously, or and one. But you got to get out of your own head and move to the next step.
One of the things Knight always did was he put value on the free throws in practice, meaning that anytime you went to the line, and he would routinely put you on the line. He'd just call a foul in the middle of the scrimmage or something like that, foul. He'd put you on the line. And then there would be, if the player did not make the free throw, there was some form of extracurricular activity that was coming down for the entire team. So you got into that situation where the pressure was on you every time, because usually you're doing this toward the end of practice. Always make sure this was happening at the end of practice. And you were tired, you were beat up, but if you missed this free throw, you were going to run the stairs, or you were going to do another set of loose ball drills, or another set of take the charge drills. You would immediately, if you missed the free throws, you just went right into the loose ball. All right, loose ball, 5 minutes, let's go. So the pressure was there, and he put you in real-life pressure situations, because everybody's looking at you like, Risley, do not miss these free throws. My Vaseline is running off.
Right.
It's off my body now. If I slide on this court, it's going to create a court burn, and I do not want another.
Just stop with the Vaseline.
Yeah, I do not want to be sticking to my sheets later on in the night.
Jeez, will you please stop with the Vaseline? All right, go ahead.
So putting value on your free throw practicing, I think, is something that a lot of coaches don't do. They think just by wearing you out and making you shoot them when you're tired, but you realize you don't have that sense of urgency that this matters for something. You're tired, trying to shoot tired, and that's okay. Usually you had a water bottle in your hand or a towel wrapped around you for a few minutes before you go. You take a break. All right, free throws, everybody. That's everybody get a water break, get some water, go shoot free throws for 10 minutes while the coaches confer on what they want to do to torment you for the next 20 minutes of practice. But Knight always seemed to find a way to put immediate consequences or immediate value on shooting the free throws. And I think that made us a better free throw shooting team. Guys, because we started to rely on each other, like we didn't care who was on the line. That person, you're saving the team right now, buddy, so you got to make these. And that's a real game situation. It doesn't matter who gets fouled, even if it's Ollie in the movie Hoosiers, where, he shoots it underhand. Ollie gets in. Ollie's got to make the free throw. So Hickory Huskers move on. And they put them in real-life situations. I think that's a real key for Miller to be doing and getting his players into that situation. The next of the 5 points I had, I thought really where I think Indiana struggled a little bit last year was getting a transition off the defensive end and creating offense with their defense. Basically, looking at the statistics from last year, and I'm not a big statistical guy. I don't like harping on statistics a lot. I think they do tell you some things, but in terms of block shots, Indiana ranked like 278th in the country, and steals 273rd in the country. For all the hype and harp of coming in and Miller being a defensive coach, we didn't play very good defense last year. We didn't play critical defense, and we didn't score off our defense a lot, and we didn't use our defense to create an offense. I think for Indiana to be good this year with the speed they've got, the young horses they've got, and the mobility they've got on this team, they've got to turn their defense into an offense for them. They've got to be able to block out. They've got to be able to force teams into bad shots, using the shot clock as an ally. And they've got to sustain their defensive effort for more than just one go-through anybody's offensive scheme, and make them run through 2 or 3 times to where the offense finally gets frustrated. Then you get the rebound, you block out solidly, you transition out, you get guys filling the lane, get guys going to the right position, not just running up the court, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm open. But get guys in the right position, get your shooters where they need to be, line your shooters up in the spots where they're going to give you the best opportunity to score a three or get the ball in the hands of the penetrators that you've got. They're going to be able to take the ball to the hole and create opportunity for Morgan or your big guys inside. So I think number two definitely is Indiana's got to work very hard at creating offense off their defense. I thought they were not very good at that last year. I think that hurt them along the way in trying to control tempo of the basketball game. Collin, input?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day it comes down to communication offensively and defensively. Being in the right spots, having your guys back, being in the help side, so you can get those steals and get those blocks and help your teammates and things of that nature. And then, like you said, run in transition, know where you're supposed to be. We work on it all every day. It's just a matter of having another year under the guys' belts, freshmen picking up sooner, having the leadership of guys having a year under their belt and having a more smooth transition into this year. That will be good for this team. I really look forward to it.
And I know at this point in the year when we started our seasons, I would venture to say, without having it written down in stone, probably 1/3 of the time we spent on the basketball court in the first 4 weeks was in some form of a blockout transition drill. Either 1-on-1 blockout, 2-on-2 blockout, post blockout, 5-on-5 blockout, and everything went from blockout. It was not just blockout and stop. Like, you've seen teams like, I want the ball to bounce on the ground. It was not that, but we did it. It was block out and then transition to offense immediately. And it got you the full court running up and down, but it got everybody into the right lanes and the right positions. And Knight would harp as much on you blocking out and getting to the ball and keeping your offense, your offense away from getting a second opportunity to score, but yet then filling lanes and knowing what everybody's role was to transition that defense right into offense. So it's a whole process that goes on. But I would bet at this point in time, if I had a stopwatch to go back and measure each practice, I would say easily 1/3 of a 3-hour practice was spent simply just on block-out transition to offense. And I think that's so critical.
Well, and we talked about this last year at the start of the season. I think this is going to be easier, and I think Archie is a really good defensive coach. He was at Dayton.
Sure.
But I think a lot of this last year was, as Collin said, everybody had to get used to each other. These were not players that he recruited. They were Tom Crean recruits. And I would say from now on, every freshman class you get is a guy that has been brought here because he can play the style that Archie wants to play.
No doubt. And that's a great observation, Mike. I mean, for somebody who doesn't have a genius basketball mind, coming from you, that's a very astute observation.
I know you have a genius basketball mind. I mean, you average more fouls than you did points.
I would say I'm better than 278th in the country out of 300. Okay, we'll go that far as to say I'm probably a little bit above that average. And the other factor is Hartman's out of the picture. What does that mean, by the way? So the transition, Hartman's out of the picture, so the transition will be able to go more smoothly as they run into their offensive position.
Oh, hell, let's face it. They should have been using Collin a lot more last year because they needed somebody to shoot a three.
How many times did we do a show last year and I say, why is Hartman not in the game and why is Hartman not shooting the ball?
How many times did I say that? He could go back and listen to the shows and he could see who was saying that. And it wasn't you, it was me.
We were both in total agreement on that. Okay, so defensive transition is going to be critical. And I agree with you entirely. I think he's got his system into place now. He's got more of his style of person into place. And I think that's probably the biggest marked uptick you're initially going to see from Indiana, I'll bet, as they come out of the blocks playing right off the bat, is you're going to see a much more physical, mean defensive program than you saw last year. And we needed to bleed out Tom Crean. And, some coaches want to win 93-92. I get that. That's what the shot clock's designed for it to happen. That's the way TV wants the game played. They want high-scoring offenses. But I still think defenses win championships. And they give you the opportunity to control your own destiny more than a high-powered offense does. So, and I think Archie really understands that. I'm looking so much forward to seeing what he does defensively. That's the first thing I'm going to be looking for.
All right.
Number 3 of the number 5, I think that they have to stabilize their guard play. I think that was probably the biggest downfall of Indiana basketball last year, was just their inability to be stable at the guards. They had quality guards. I mean, all the guys that were playing in there were at one point or another during the course of the season showed flashes of brilliance across the board. But nobody could sustain the effort, and you couldn't solidify it and go consistently with the same guys and make defenses play you rather than you have to constantly set up your offense to work against defenses that were coming at you. And I think that's one of the problems Indiana ran into last year, was they simply just did not have the stability at guard play. I think for Green and Durham, I think it's critical for them to come out and establish stability immediately to win the confidence of Miller that they're going to be able to do it. Finney is a solid, great potential point guard in the Big Ten and in college basketball. The slower you can bring him along and the more you can work him in so he doesn't get put into situations where he makes bad decisions and then starts to build on those bad decisions, that you can let him see the flow of the game, bring him in slowly when the flow's already going and work his way in, I think is a plus. But the key offensively, just the pure offensive side, I think right now is Durham and Green. We know what we're going to get out of Morgan. We know what we're getting, and we pretty well can guess what we're going to get out of Langford. We're going to get firepower out of those two guys. But if we don't have steady guard play and we aren't able to control the tempo of a basketball game, and we aren't have the ability to be smart enough to know when to pick up the pace, slow down the pace, to reset an offense, or to push the ball or penetrate and dribble drive penetration and kick, we're going to flounder offensively. And then we're going to put too much pressure on our defense. Collin, what do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. At the end of the day, your guards are the people who have the ball in their hands the most. They make more decisions than anybody on the team, and you have to have a leader in those positions. So I think that one of those guys, Devontae or Al or even Rob or any of those guys need to step up. They're fully capable of it. I know they are, to step up and help lead that team as well. I don't think it should be a team of one leader. I think it should be a team of one specific leader, but a group of guys that are all going to work together to bring along a whole team. So I think that the decision-making is going to be in their hands the majority of the time. So having those guys in mind and having them be consistent is only good for the team at the end of the day. So like you said, yeah, if you can get guys like Devontae and those guys to be consistent day in and day out and make smart plays and make big plays, but also hit singles majority of the time, then we'll be rolling. But at the end of the day, they're still a young team, still young guys. And today we live in a microwave society, just the way it is with the fan base and life in general. People always want instant gratification, instant results, things of that nature. It's not going to happen overnight. At the end of the day, the whole season, the reason of the season is to peak at the right time. It doesn't. I mean, if you peak at the beginning, it doesn't matter. So we definitely don't want to be playing our best basketball of the season at the beginning of the season. So throughout the season, we got to give the guys and the team time to grow and grow together. So I completely agree with the guard statement of we have to have those guys step up in a big way.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why we're talking about the first 4 weeks of the season here right now. This is the time that you establish that right now. This is the time when you put those kids under that kind of pressure. You put them under that kind of pressure in practice as much as you can. You get them used to that environment right now so that then once we start playing opponents, we can then begin to grow as opposed to begin to learn. I mean, there's two different things here. Right now, for the next 4 weeks, most of Indiana basketball is in a learning curve. They're still learning Miller. They're still learning. They got a lot of freshmen in there who's going to make big contributions to this program. They're learning each other. You got a whole new core of players. You got Morgan coming back, and you got Zach coming back, and you got a couple, you got Green and Devontae, but really you got a lot of young talent members. So they're in a learning curve for the next 4 weeks. What you want to do is in this next 4 weeks is transition from that learning curve into a developmental curve. And there's a little bit different. Hopefully within 4 weeks, they've learned what they need to learn. What the old saying is right now, they don't know what they don't know. Right now, that's the phase that they're all in. we want to get them in this next 4-week window to where they know what they don't know. And then we take the early part of the preseason where we're playing the touch teams that we're playing in the first 3 or 4 games, and we're using that time in the developmental phase more as a learning phase. I thought Indiana lacked a little bit of that, but I think that was just a culture issue with a new coach coming in with just a total disarray of nobody really being in charge. And I do not see this basketball team as what I would call a Quinn Buckner or an Isaiah or a Steve Alford IU basketball team. Those teams all had definitive leaders. This team, I do not believe, has a definitive leader at this point in time. We'd like to think it's going to be Juwan Morgan, but I think Juwan Morgan's going to end up being more of a statistical leader for this basketball club and a go-to leader. But in terms of an on-court leader, I don't think that player has been defined yet, whether it be Romeo, whether it be Fennessy, whether it be Green, whether it be Durham, any of those guys. I think that play is still up for grabs to some degree. Who's going to step up in the next 4 weeks and want to take some ownership of this team in terms of leadership on the court. But a great team has to have an on-court leader. And I don't think Morgan's going to be the right person for that job. I think he's going to be your go-to leader where in clutch situations we're getting the ball to Morgan and we're going to let him play. But this team lacks what many of the other great IU teams that have won championships have had, and that's what I would call a definitive leader. Any comments there?
Right. How can I ask you, Steve? I'm just curious, like on the court, off the court, how vocal of a leader was Isaiah?
Oh, extremely. I mean, from the day he walked into court, I mean, he walked into the locker room the first time and took charge of the team. Everybody rallied around.
Vocally, rather than just like playing and stuff. Like on the court, obviously actions speak for themselves, but there's quiet leaders. But he was very vocal.
Very vocal leader. He was in my face the second practice I was ever in. He was in Tolbert's face. I don't take that I take that as an honor that he cared enough about me to get in my face, meaning, Risley, I see you as part of this team. For us to win, you're going to have to be effective. Here's what you're going to need to do to make us effective. He was that charismatic a leader on the court vocally and as he was, playmaking-wise on the court too. But, no, he was a very vocal leader. In the locker room, he spoke for us when we all needed to dress coach. We had seniors on the team. We had 4 or 5 seniors on the team my senior year, and Isaiah was our spokesman as a sophomore. And he took it naturally. We didn't necessarily anoint him that position, but we didn't not anoint him that position either. He just naturally took it. And I think Buckner was probably the same way. I don't know much about Alford, if he was that well respected or liked by his teammates. But I know that Isaiah and Quinn both were. I know both those gentlemen very well. But no, he was totally, and that's what Indiana, for them to get to the next level, to that Final Four level, they're going to need somebody on that team to step up and take that role. If it's Green, if it's Langford, if it's Morgan, even if it's Morgan, I don't know, but somebody's going to have to do that for them to be good at what they do.
I think the vocal component of that is paramount, because when stuff hits the fan, and things aren't going our way and stuff of that nature, you got to, at the end of the day, be able to bring guys together and have a conversation on the court. Have a quick conversation, 3-5 seconds, whatever. Get something into the guys' heads so that we can turn stuff around. Because at the end of the day, if everybody's playing like crap, it doesn't matter what you do because everybody's playing bad. You have to say something to get through to the guys.
I can tell you this. In 1979 or 1980-81, when Isaiah was with us, there were more times than I can count on 2 hands where Isaiah went to the coach and said, please leave the locker room. We'll handle this ourselves. And the coaches left the locker room. And we sat down, and the bitch session had nothing to do with coaches, nothing to do with films. It had to do with Whitman, Kitchell, Tolbert, Turner, Isaiah, Glenn Grunwald, Jimmy Thomas, Mike Woodson when he was there in 1980. Any of us got up, and we handled it amongst ourselves, but that was all directed by Isaiah. But there were many a times when Isaiah went to the coaches and said, you guys need to leave the locker room right now. We'll take care of this. And Knight respected Isaiah so much, they left the locker room. I'm sure that all their
Right.
goddamn ears were right out of the door listening to what we were saying, or they had microphones sitting in the locker room. But no, that happens a lot. And I don't know if you can ever say that's ever happened in your locker room last year where somebody stepped up and said, "Coach is out. We'll handle this on our own." But that's for a team to win championships consistently and to consistently play for national championships. That's what needs to happen. Leadership comes from within, not directed from above. Coaching
100%.
comes from above. Leadership comes from within.
100%.
What's number 4, Steve?
Number 4, Indiana's going to have to develop a 1-2 punch. Welcome, Mr. Langford. We know what Juwan Morgan's going to do. We know that he's going to score 15, 20, 25 points a game for us. He's a consistent player. He handled pretty much everything the Big Ten threw at him last year. He still consistently scored at critical times for us, kept us in many games, didn't get himself into foul trouble a lot, played smart ball. But for Indiana to elevate to contending for the Big Ten championship and to contending for a Sweet 16 and to even be mentioned in the realm of a Final Four, which might be a stretch this year, maybe not. We'll see how the team develops. But they have got to get a secondary scorer, and I think that falls on the shoulders right now. We're all hoping it does of Langford. And I think Devontae Green has shown me flashes of brilliance that he can penetrate the ball with the ball as well as anybody that can, and it's different ways of scoring. But I think there's got to be other players in this team right now that have to be working to step up, to take the heat and take the pressure and take the willingness to be able to shoot the ball and score in critical situations and not just always look to dump the ball to either Langford or to Morgan. Collin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have multiple scoring weapons. Otherwise, the defense can plan and scheme around one guy. It's a lot easier to do that than if you have 3-4 guys in double digits every night. I think my junior year was our best example of that. And that's why we were so good. We were hard to guard. We spread the floor. We moved the ball, and everybody was unselfish. I think you have your go-to guys like Juwan and maybe Romeo if he steps up, and Devontae. But you need guys like McRoberts to get 6, 7 points a game, 8 points a game here and there. Duran, 10, 12 points a game, stuff like that. Just spread it out. You're going to have Juwan having his 15 to 25, whatever you want to name it. But you have to have multiple options to where you don't have a weak link where they can hide their weak defender. A lot of teams do that. They have a weak defender that's just a spot-up shooter, and they hide him by putting him on the guy who's not a threat to shoot or anything of that nature. So it's just a matter of having a very, very diverse scoring team and having diverse options.
And I think that's one of the greatest moves Yogi Ferrell made was his senior year. He came back and assumed that role of, look, it's not incumbent upon me to score all 40 points we need to win. It's incumbent on me to make sure I get other people involved in the offense, that we collectively score the extra 40 points we need on top of the 20 I'm going to give you or something like that. And I think that was a transition that Yogi Ferrell made his senior year that etched him into what I would call that elite class of what I would say really great guards that have come from Indiana University. And I'd say he's in that category. I mean, he's not Isaiah, but nobody will be Isaiah. But he's up in that same level of play that they were of the Quinns and you know, the Alfords and the Isaiahs. He's on that plateau with those guys based on his senior year, coming back and really just settling down and saying the team winning is more important than me statistically being productive. And I think that's what the leader needs to do, and that's what Indiana's got to have more than others. I think last year we reported on many a game where everything was thrown on Juwan's shoulders to do it, and he carried you. You lived and died by Juwan's offensive prowess on any given night. Some guys stepped up and had big games, but it was so inconsistent you could not rely on it, and many defenses didn't really worry about it. And when somebody got hot, they were like, well, you know, let him get his 40 points and be off with it because we can shut everybody else down, because if that's going to happen, nobody else is going to touch the ball. Indiana's got to be a basketball team that they have 5 offensive threats on the floor at any time. And it doesn't mean we have 5 guys that can score 20 points. It means we got 5 guys that can put the ball in the hole anytime they're given an opportunity to put the ball in the hole. And that's what an on-court leader is going to do.
All right, Steve, what's number 5?
Number 5, I believe, is freshmen have got to come ready to play. It's a young basketball team. You've only got a couple seniors on this team. It's a very young nucleus of a basketball team. You got even guys like Durham and Green are inexperienced. I know one's a junior, one's a sophomore, but they're still almost freshman-like experience-wise because of the minutes they didn't get to play because of the senior guards last year. Freshmen have got to come, and they don't have the luxury of being in this learning curve. They've got to be in the developmental curve from day one of practice. And that's incumbent upon Archie Miller to give them the confidence to know that if you bust your butt and work hard, minutes are going to come to you instantly, because we are not a team of seniority at this point in time. I'm not sure there ever is going to be a college basketball team of what I call seniority, as in our case was in 81, where you had guys staying the 4 years, except for maybe Isaiah. Now you've got guys staying 1 or 2 years, and the seniority thing doesn't play as much as what kind of contributions can I make right now. So the level of intensity and the level of ability to learn that the Fennessees and the Langfords and this class, this whole heralded class, come in right off the bat and are willing to dive into, be willing to make mistakes, be willing to be criticized for making mistakes. Don't take it personally. The greatest advice I ever got was from Kent Benson when I was being recruited to Indiana about Bob Knight. Don't listen to how he says things. Listen to what he says. And there are no truer words spoken about Bob Knight. Do not listen to how he says things. Listen to what he's telling you. Because if you get hung up on how he's telling it to you, if you get hung up on how he's telling it to you, you will fail. Because you'll lose your confidence. Listen to what he's telling you. So, and that's
exactly what Tim Buckley. Go ahead. That's exactly what Tim Buckley told me coming in, because my freshman year I was deer in the headlights. I mean, everybody knows that.
Yeah. And I was too, Collin. I was too. No matter how hard you try to overcome that, you're still in awe of what's going on around you. These kids are going to be playing in front of 18,000 rabid fans. The expectations of Indiana basketball right now are higher than they've been since the late 80s, early 90s. Everybody's expecting something magnanimous to happen immediately. We got the prodigal son. We kept our superstar. We've got the next Hall of Fame coach. And I'm going to tell you, Collin, you went through 5 years of it. I went through 4 years of it. We know what the expectations are of the people that sit in those seats at Assembly Hall. And they are not mediocre. It's not Butler. It's not Purdue.
No.
It's not Indiana State, Mike. I can tell you. It's Indiana basketball.
Butler's defense, I've watched Butler play in 2 national championship games in the last decade or so.
And how many have we seen him win? How many have we seen him win?
At least they got there.
Indiana it doesn't matter.
Since 1987.
Well, they got 5 of them.
Whatever.
Got to win something, though. Well, you had to rip Indiana State. Yeah. Indiana State made it to a national championship game, too.
Okay. Well, all right. This wasn't a rip on Indiana State. I'm just telling you, it's a different environment. And these kids need to understand that the game of basketball is spelled differently in Indiana. It's spelled RELIGION. Right? Every other place is called BASKET, BALL.
I'm impressed with the spelling.
Yeah, me too. I'm not going to be completely honest with you.
I
I'm on my side of this one.
He's got those words up on the computer, so he spelled them right, too.
He typed them out.
Hey, let me tell you something, guys.
Little hyphens in between each
wife
letter.
Double-checked them, then he used autocorrect.
Let me tell you something about that. Everybody has the will to win. Very few people have the will to prepare to win. I spelled it out first before I said it. I prepared to win.
I know.
So those are my 5 teams that I think that Indiana really in the next 4 weeks needs to hone in on those 5 things. They need to get chemistry. But all those chemistry will come through everybody embracing those 5 fundamental things that Indiana's got to improve upon. And they need to find a common goal. It's critical for Miller as a coach to sit down with these guys and have just a whole practice session. And we did this every year. We defined our goals. And Knight sat down with us and we got a chalkboard and we defined what our goals were. And of course there was give and take and debate over those, but it was written in chalk. And once it was written in chalk, it was sent to the paint shop and it was put on a big, huge painted up poster and it was stuck in the locker room. And those were our goals for the year. Agreed upon, signed by every player, signed the sheet. It sat in our locker room and we all signed our name to it. And those were the common goals that as a team we wanted to achieve. And if we measured ourselves on every practice as to how well did we work toward achieving our common goals. And that's what builds culture. That's what builds unity. That's what builds a high-performing team where you don't, I always say a high-performing team will 99.9% of the time beat a team of high performers. Are you hear what I'm saying? A high-performing team will almost always beat a team of high performers because they play as a team. They don't play as a bunch of high performers. And I think it's incumbent upon Miller's role in all this is to take this talent that he has now and build a high-performing team with it. And I think he's got 4 weeks to do it. I think Indiana's got a good schedule. They can come out of the blocks. I think they can make some impact quick, which all of a sudden sets the tone of how people feel about your team. A little bit more fear. Bullseye gets a little bit bigger on your back. People respect you a little bit more. They take you a little bit more seriously. And you start feeling better about yourself and your play. Collin?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got to grow the team gradually.
Collin, I didn't bring you on the show just to agree with me with everything I say.
Well,
I got good
all
to do that.
the answers, Risley. Damn. What do you want him to debate? That free throws are important or that defense is important? Come on. You're just shooting club pigeons.
The freshmen need to play well this year?
Yeah, the freshmen need to play well. Everybody's got to remember to tie their shoes. Don't bend over unless Risley's got Vaseline. And they're all pretty much easy.
Guys, don't let them score. You mean disagree with that? Give me something to work with, Risley.
Yeah, come on. We got to have something to debate. We need some games to start. All right, and Steve, we're going to finish every show with tales from the IU locker room. Would you like to start it off, or would you let Collin go first?
I've talked enough. Let Collin tell the funny story today.
Okay.
Well, the choices that I have of the era-appropriate stories are slim to none. But there's
they don't have
one.
To be era-appropriate. We're not on network TV. Just don't use swear words. Just don't use swear words. That's all.
Yeah, just don't use swear words. You can
don't use swear words. You're good.
Make up other words for it.
Yeah, make up other words for it. Don't.
That'll make it funnier.
No. Just don't use swear words. Just go ahead and tell your story.
Yeah. I'm gonna start off with a very, very modest one that I would feel comfortable saying on TV. Okay, then we'll work up.
Okay.
See, Mike, he doesn't want to sit next to the band.
Hey, Steve.
He doesn't want to sit next to the
Steve,
I don't want the tuba in my ear.
Collin talk finally, and now you're already interrupting.
Thanks, Indiana State.
You're welcome.
So there was a teammate, obviously. We're in the locker room. He wore these. I mean, IU gave us all these running shoes and stuff like that, and street shoes, really comfortable and stuff to wear. Nice shoes. But at the end of the day, this was one player that he kept wearing the same old shoes that he mowed grass in back at home, and they were all beat up. They were Asics. They needed to be thrown away. And so me and a couple of teammates, we grabbed his shoes out of the locker and just started walking away with him. He said, "Hey, where you guys going with those? Those are my shoes." Like, he had an emotional attachment to these shoes. I don't know why. They're just grass mowing shoes. They had the green stains on them and everything. And so we were walking to the trash can, and we had to have two guys grab him, like, "Hold on now, let this happen." And so we turned on the military salute song that they play at military funerals,
Taps.
And let it play for a few minutes and just dropped him in the trash can and made him walk away. And we gave him new shoes because we were like, "Yo, you cannot be walking around in these."
Now, Collin, if you noticed during this show, Steve's dogs never barked until he said it was time for Collin to talk. And then the dogs went nuts.
Yeah, those dogs, I don't know what's going on.
I know. It's like he's got them trained to be quiet when he's talking, but the dogs overshadow everybody else.
My apologies on that one. I apologize.
Steve,
I take the heat.
It's all right.
I take the heat for that one.
But, Steve, do you have any final words for tonight?
No, I think I'm really looking forward to it, the season. I think we're going to, as play as we get into some games and we get into it now, we really get into the grind. And I think the insight that Collin's going to be able to bring us, because he's fresh off this, what's happening last year. Collin, are you missing it any right now? Are you kind of feeling it right now? Like you kind of like to be down there and know what's coming up in 8 days, 9 days?
Yeah, I mean, normally I'm in these discussions. The last 5 years I've been in these discussions. And now I'm the one talking about them. So it is definitely different, and I think it's really going to smack me in the face at Hoosier Hysteria.
Yeah. Now, we got you media credentials. We told you about that, didn't we?
Yeah, I got the inside scoop.
Yeah. So are you going to go into the press conference afterwards with Coach Miller and ask a really intelligent question of Coach Miller?
I want to ask him all the stupid questions I got to ask.
For Indiana Basketball Weekly? Or are you going to cowl down and just sit back and just be somebody who's going to suck off the media hospitality room and get some free pop and popcorn and ham and cheese sandwiches?
Oh, that sounds good.
So you'll get
a lot of places do
that.
better than just ham and cheese sandwiches. So we'll see what Indiana does compared to like Xavier in the NCAA basketball tournament.
Colin,
yeah,
how about next week? How about next week if Mike and I come up with the question we want you to ask Coach Miller after the Hoosier Hysteria Fright Night or whatever it's called?
I already got the
madness
question.
That starts at 4 p.m.
I've got the question. I've got the question. All right. Number one, why is Midnight Madness at 4 p.m.? But number two, just start off, stand up, and say, Coach Miller, who wore number 34 in 1980 for the Indiana Hoosiers? And just
Cricket.
Cricket. I would guess he's going to know the answer to that because he walks right by that picture every day he goes to his office.
You want to put a wager on that?
No, he goes in the back door, probably. You're right. He probably goes in the back door.
If he does, he better bring the Vaseline. All right. Anything else, Collin?
Collin, we are going to devise the first question for you to ask. You're going to get your media credentials that you have now, which will guarantee you will not sit next to the band.
I don't know. JD
I'll wave
Campbell
to you
told
if you ever
me
come
that
back.
he was going to sit Collin all the way at the top. So
JD knows better. JD's my guy.
Yeah. I think Collin will have a prime seat, but no, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think Collin, you're going to bring a lot of insight, down the road here, and as soon as the season starts, and that's when we're really going to rely on you to really lead us through what these kids are thinking. You know the personality of these kids. You know what they're thinking. I know you helped recruit a lot of them, and we're really looking forward to your insight into this whole thing and making this really fun for the fans that want to listen to us. So, Mike, where can we be found? When can we be found? What is our objective for this year with Indiana Basketball Weekly with Collin Hartman and Steve Risley?
Well,
I get Collin top billing.
Our objective at the end of the season is to sit at the Final Four, to three of us courtside while IU wins a national championship. Now, whether that can be done, we don't know. But who knows?
Agreed upon.
Yeah, anything can happen. I think this roster's really good. If you guys want to find us, you can go to @GruelingTruth on Twitter. Or what's the – did you ever figure out what the IU basketball Twitter handle is on Twitter there, Steve?
Keep talking, and I'll give it to you here in just a second.
Oh, come on, Steve. You've had a week. You had one thing to do, and when we got on, you
had
there,
one job.
You told us how prepared
you had one job.
I manage 7 different Twitter pages, okay? I have that many of them in my armamentarium. I got one, the Magical Aussies, which my 2 dogs have their own Twitter page. They do.
That's your first problem in life.
The basketball one does. Trust me, they have many more followers than we do.
How many do they got?
If you want to see great pictures of my 2 Australian
How many
shepherds,
followers do they
have? Speak for yourself.
Go to the Magical Aussies.
Wait a second. How many followers do they have?
They have almost 11,000.
Okay. Well, I have 28,000. Collin, how many do you get?
But not Grueling Truth Indiana Hoops.
No.
It is.
No, I have 13. I have 14,000 roughly.
You know why we don't have 28,000 for the Grueling Truth Hoops page, Steve? Because you can't remember the name of it, so we can tell people where to find it.
It is @Grueling Hoops. @Grueling Hoops.
@Grueling Hoops. You can also go
Grueling
to
Truth, Indiana Hoops. Grueling Truth, Indiana Hoops. The hashtag or whatever the little oomla thing sign is. Grueling Hoops.
The oomla? What
What
you just said?
side.
I'm 60 years old. I am not a social media genius.
Obvious.
Clearly.
Obviously, I've got my dog's more followers than I got myself. I only got 500 followers.
Huh. All
Personal
right.
problem.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this mess up. We're just going to put this up, the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show. Collin and Steve talk about Vaseline. All right, guys, remember, you can hear, what, Steve? You're the one who brought it up like 50 times. You can follow us at Grueling Truth. You can go to gruelingtruth.net. You can go to Facebook, find the Grueling Truth Facebook page. Do you have an Indiana basketball page yet on Facebook, Steve?
At Grueling Hoops.
On Facebook?
Oh, on Facebook. Oh, no, I have not created one on Facebook. I'll do that as I hang up.
All right. Homework for next week, Steve. All right.
Hey,
You
Mike,
have one job,
Mike,
Steve. One job.
Mike, can I get a logo? Can I get a logo for our site?
Sure, get you a logo.
Well, can you do one for us? You're the producer.
I got one that can do it.
There you go. We could use some
All right,
artwork for the show.
We need some artwork for the show to put up, and we'll create a Facebook page. No problem. And we will be on every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock throughout the season. That'll be our standard time. Is that correct, Mike?
Sure. If it's fine with you guys,
Sure.
it's fine with me. So
and we will do
unless there's a game on a Wednesday, then we'll be on after the game.
We'll be on after the game, correct? Right. We'll do a feature show. We do plan on having guests once the season starts. Between Collin and I, we should be able to wrestle up a few guys who are just looking to get another 15 minutes of fame and be on the radio with us. So we'll find those guys and we'll bring them on and tell Indiana stories about having your old tennis shoes thrown away and getting a new pair of free ones from Adidas, of which we didn't get anything free. We got four pairs of shoes that lasted. We got 4 pairs of shoes that lasted for the season, and we blew them out. We had to beg and grovel from Tim, or not even Tim, from Bob Young, our trainer, to get more shoes. We didn't have this open warehouse. You should see it, Mike. You see this stock room they've got at Assembly Hall. You walk in there, and it is
that's
like
for all the
Adidas.
sports.
Yeah, it's like an Adidas superstore. I mean, you walk in there, and it's like anything you could ever imagine. You want new golf clubs? TaylorMade, it's owned by Adidas. Anything, it's all owned by Adidas.
Collin, you got to remember this. Back in 1980, when Indiana played at Purdue, the IU players had to bike through a snowstorm to get to West Lafayette to play the game.
He's a bitter old man.
All right, guys. We will be back next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock with Indiana Basketball Weekly. Make sure you listen to all the Grueling Truth shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, Collin Hartman, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.